Hi, so this is just a short screencast where I'm going to go through the code for implementing the UI in the game. There are two radial menus, so it's all done through the player UI class. So there are six game objects. So the first two here are for the planes that are placed in front of the player's camera, so the where the actual menu is located. So most of the code is to do with them, and then is these two are the selectors, so the blue selectors of the menu, and then the last two are the actual cylinders which act as which the menu texture is actually on. So there's a byte here for what the current frequency is, so the currently active one. There aren't many frequencies, so we don't need a bigger don't need a bigger storage unit than a byte. Same with current remote, and then there's two booleans here just to check if the menus are actually active, like if the player is holding down the button to open them. And this one is just checking if the menus are in the right place on the screen. This one is checking if the player is using a rift rather than a traditional screen. These two are for actually rotating the menu, because they don't just snap rotate, they slowly rotate around, so these just check if it's still slowly rotating. And then just how much they rotate by is these two here. So here's just some of these code, but I won't be talking about his, I'll just be talking about the code for what I wrote. So it starts up and it just gets the game objects that have the tag frequency menu and emotes menu, so they should just be two cylinders in the game. And then so then when this code is started up, it sets the current frequency to the combo jump, which is the first one on the menu, and then it finds the rest of the objects, so the planes which are created along with when the player's camera is created, when an instance of the player is created, these planes are all created as well, so that's why they're in start rather than awake. So then on update it does a few things. First of all, it places the menu and checks if it's in the right place. Second, and then the second and third ones are just using the actual menus, like if there's anything that's happened to them. So Lee did change a bit of this code when he was working on the input handler, but it's basically the same as when I originally wrote it. So they're called from the input handler. So if the menu is opened, then it sets open as true, and it just increases the size of the planes in front of the camera, so the menu gets a bit bigger. And then again, if they're closed, then it just puts them back to their original size. And then the same thing happens for the emotes menu. And for changing frequency here, if the menu isn't open, then obviously they can't do anything. So it sets the previous frequency to the current frequency. So if it's going forward, so this moving forward, it checks if they're going to basically turn it to the right or turn it to the left, because the player can go either way. So if it's turning to the right and it's not currently rotating, so that you can't like queue a load of them up and do it all together, it just increases the current frequency by 1, and if it's at 4, because there are only 4 frequencies, it just sets it back to 1. And then it sets the rotate value to 0, and it says yeah, it is rotating and it's going clockwise. And then if it's going to the left, so anti-clockwise, it just does the same thing. It just takes one number away and sets a new frequency, and then it tells it what to rotate, and says yeah, it is rotating, but it's not going clockwise. And this is just a check that the current frequency it isn't on the same frequency again. Just there was some problems with that originally, so it just, if it isn't like that, then it sets it as the new frequency. And change your mode is just the same thing, just for the other menu. So using the emotes, so these are just if the current emote equals 1, this is called from elsewhere again. So if current is 1, then it waves. If it's 2, then it does a random dance. If it's 3, it just calls the animation to point, and 4 is halt. So this is the code for actually just rotating the menus around. So it just literally just rotates it by 3 degrees at a time, and adds on the F rotate, and if it gets to 90, then it's false. So then if it's going counterclockwise, it starts F rotate starts at 90, and then it takes away a 3 every time. So once it gets to 0, it stops rotating. And then just for setting a frequency, just if it's currently on trigger, then and it hasn't changed, then it sets the new one to trigger. Same with combo portal and help. It's just if it's actually moved, then it sets them properly. And then this is just to rotate the emotes menu. And this was some code we needed because of the Oculus Rift. So I just have in the actual game, the planes are just in a random place, but once the game starts, they're put in the correct position. So this is if the Oculus Rift is present. So if it's there, then it'll move the menu to here, because it has to be in a different place, whereas in a Rift on the screen, because if it's because obviously the Rift is 3D, so it can't be too close to your face, because it'll block too much of the screen, and it can't be like over in the corner, because you'll have to look around to see it, and it'll get annoying. So that's why these are different things. So they just basically move the menus and resize them to get to the right size, and says right place and using Rift to true. And then this the one is if it isn't using the Rift, then it goes in here and just sets it for the normal screen, and it just sets right place to true. So using Rift is still false. And the reason there are the extra checks in here is because you can unplug the Rift during the game, and it'll revert to playing it on the normal screen. So I needed to move the menus like to the proper place once you unplug the Rift. So this just checks that it was never using the Rift. So if it was never using the Rift, it goes in here. But then if it was using the Rift, if using Rift is true, then it goes in here and then sets using Rift equals false, and just sets it to the right position here. And that's the code for the UI.